Welcome students. Students, in the previous class, we were discussing how the black majority and the white minority people sat together and discuss about the future course of the action for the people of South Africa. You know, the white minority government was ruling over the black majority people. It was oppressive, but when South Africa got freedom from them, from the white minority government, the people of South Africa, particularly the black people and its leaders, appealed to the fellow blacks to forgive them and to forget all those old memories, all those incidents what had taken place in South Africa. And the country which was denounced by the whole world because of its unhumanitarian ground, on the basis of unhumanitarian ground, now seems to be a model of democracy for the world. And after a long struggle, both the people, the white as well as the black, they sat together and drawn up a common constitution for the people of South Africa. Students, today we are going to discuss about different other facts about the constitution. The first one is why do we need a constitution? Why do we need a constitution? To discuss about this, before going to that, let us have some facts. The South African example is a good way to understand why we need a constitution and what do constitution do. The South African model, which seems to be drawn up by the people, both black as well as the white, itself is a model of constitution for the whole democratic country of the world. It is a source of inspiration for the different democratic government of the world also. That is why it is a perfect example of to understand why do we need a constitution and what do constitution do. The oppressor and the oppressed in this new democracy were planning to live together. The oppressor and the oppressed. The oppressor, the white minority government, and the oppressed, the black majority people. This oppressor and the oppressed class, now they are going to live together as equal in this South African country. The country which was denounced by the whole world because of its apartheid system. Now, you see the beauty of democracy. These two categories of people which were opposite to one another, going against one another, now they have decided to live together. This is the beauty of democracy. And though they have decided to live together as equal, but it was not going to be so easy for them. Because of what? Because to trust each other. There was a time when these two communities of people going against each other, now they decided to live together. How can they believe one another? It is not so easy. Anyhow, after a long negotiation, both the parties agreed to compromise. Compromise was made by the white also as well as the black also. Students, you must remember one thing is that when India got independence, the British left the country. But when South Africa got independent, the white people, they stayed there and Now, these white who were ruling over them, who were ruling over the blacks, and the blacks who were oppressed by the whites, now they have decided to live together. And here the whites agreed to the principle of majority rule and that of one person, one vote. It is the biggest challenge in front of the whites because in South Africa, who is the majority community? Blacks were the majority community. And still the whites agreed to the principle of majority rule and that of one person, one vote. It is a very interesting fact. At the same time, they also agreed to accept some basic rights for the poor and the workers. Students, you know, when the compromise is being made between the two parties, both the party have to agree. Here, the white people, they are in a mood to agree to accept some basic rights for the poor and the workers. The blacks also agreed that majority rule would not be absolute because majority is needed in terms of formation of the government, not in terms of the communities. This was better understood by the white also as well as the black also. So when the white agreed to the principle of majority rule, at the same time the blacks also agreed that the majority rule would not be absolute. At the same time, you know, the white people had their fears because these were the white people who were ruling over the blacks and they have committed atrocities over the blacks by introducing apartheid system. So they were having their own fear. They couldn't believe the white easily. At the same time, they wanted to safeguard their interest. Whose interest? White's interest. The black majority was also keen to ensure that the democratic principle of majority rule was not compromised. Whatever the rules and regulations will be there, that will not be compromised at all. In this way, both the party, that is white people as well as the black people, they agreed to some common points. The blacks wanted substantial social and economic rights, some sort of privileges they wanted, that is to be given to the poor people, worker section. This was the demand of the black. At the same time, the white minority was keen to protect its privileges and property. Whatever the property they have before that, they wanted to protect it. So, both the party, here the blacks wanted some substantial social and economic rights for them. At the same time, the white minority people, they wanted to protect their property and protect their privileges. The black wanted substantial social and economic rights, whereas the white minority was keen to protect its own privileges and property. Here the two parties, the blacks as well as the white, they wanted to compromise each other. When the blacks were demanding some sort of rights for the poor and the workers, they are the white minority, they are in a mood to protect their interest, that is to protect their privileges and property. The black also agreed that majority would not take away the property of the white minority because the white people from the very beginning they were having fear of their property. So here the black also agreed that the majority would not take away the property of the minority. But this compromise was not so easy. Though it was made between these two groups, oppressed and the oppressor, the white who were the oppressor and the blacks who were the oppressed class, the compromise was made between these two groups. But the compromise was not so easy. Why it was not so easy? Now, there was a question here. What is the question? How was this compromise going to be implemented? Both the groups sat together and made the compromise. But the question is, how was to be implemented? Then, even if they managed to trust each other, what was the guarantee that this trust will not broken in future? You see, both the groups sat together, made the compromise, but still they are not fully satisfied. Because question is raising in their head. Both the group, white as well as the black. How that compromise going to be implemented? And what is the guarantee that this compromise or that the trust which has been developed between these two groups will not be broken in the future? What is the guarantee? And who will give the guarantee? Now, the only way to build and maintain trust in such a situation is to write down some rules of the game that everyone would abide by. Whenever the players are playing, whatever the rules and regulations are there in that particular game, it is followed by all. So, this is the best way that will help the compromise whatever had been made by these two groups. Because if they will make some rules and regulations, and if it will be written down in the form of rules and regulations, then it will help them to build and maintain trust to each other. And that is to be followed by both. Who? Black also and white also. And what type of rules and regulations will be written down? These rules lay down how the rulers are to be chosen in future. That rules which has to be written down, that will lay down the principles how the rulers are to be chosen in future. At the same time, these rules also determine what the elected government are empowered to do so and what they can't do. This set of rules and regulations which has to be written down, that will also determine what the elected government are empowered to do so and what they cannot do. Then and there only it could help them to build and maintain trust with each other. And finally, these rules decide the rights of the citizen. At the same time, these rules and regulations will also provide rights to the citizen. And how these rules and regulations will be effective? These rules will work only if the winner cannot change them very easily. No matter whoever will be there in the government, they can't change them very easily. If such principles or rules or regulations will be written down, then there only it will help both the group, the white as well as the black, to build and maintain trust with each other. And this was the thing what the South African did. They sat together, made compromise. Already we have discussed how they prepared the constitution for them, and it is one of the finest model of constitution for the whole world today, and by agreeing on the principle of compromise. Both the party, the black as well as the white. And it was done by the South African people. They agreed on some basic rules. Both the party, they agreed. They also agreed that these rules will be supreme. Whatever the rules and regulations will be there, it will be supreme. And no government can ignore these also. And this set of basic rule is called Constitution. Because Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It is the fundamental documents of the country, which is to be abided by the people also as well as the government also. No one can ignore. Whatever the principles, rules and regulations will be there in the Constitution, it is to be followed by all, irrespective of their caste, creed, race, religion may be. So, this set of basic rule was there. That is what it is called Constitution. Constitution making is not a unique to South Africa. It is not that it was made by the people of South Africa only. Every country has diverse group of people, and their relationship may not have been bad as that between the white and the black in South Africa. There are many countries of the world where there is diversity in the field of language, culture, tradition, custom. And it is more than that what it was there in between the white and the black. But at the same time, all over the people, all over the world, people have differences of opinion and interest. Throughout the whole world, the opinion and the interest of the people is not same. It varies from person to person. That is why, whether democratic or not, it is not about democracy only. Most countries in the world need to have this basic rule. Every countries of the world need to have basic rule for the smooth functioning of the government. A better understanding between the government and its citizen. At the same time, a better understanding between the government and the citizen also, there is the requirement of some basic rules. And that is what incorporated in the form of book. That is what? That is the Constitution. And this not only applied to the government, it also applied to the people also. Everywhere throughout the world, the people at the same time, the government has to follow these basic rules and regulation. That is required for the smooth functioning and better understanding between the people and the smooth functioning of the country. Otherwise, there will be chaos and confusion inside the country. So, any association needs to have its constitution. Any association, either it may be your club in your area, or a cooperative society, or a political party. Everywhere there is the requirement of rules and regulation, that is called constitution. They all need a constitution. What is the requirement of the constitution? That is for the smooth functioning. Because constitution is the supreme law of the land. It is the fundamental document. The constitution of a country is a set of rules, written rules that are accepted by all people living together in a country. Whatever the rules and regulations are there embedded in a constitution, incorporated in a constitution, it is to be abided by all, accepted by all the people living together. It is the supreme law that determines the relationship among the people living in a country with the government. This constitution and the rules and regulations which are there in this constitution, that will determine the relationship between the people living in a territory. Who are the people living in a territory? They are called the citizen. You must know, students, people in a democratic country are called citizens. Whereas the people, those who are there in a non-democratic country, they are called subjects. And this constitution transforms the status of a people from subject to citizen. You know why? Because it gives some basic rights to the people. And that is why it is the supreme law of the land that determines the relationship between the people living in a country with the government. So, now we have got what is the value of the constitution, why do we need a constitution, with the examples based on the social condition of South Africa. We have got the facts that a constitution is required for all the country. It may be democratic or not, that is not important. It is required for all. Every club, association, political party, cooperative society, everywhere there is the requirement of rules and regulations. And that is what it is called constitution. That is why now a constitution does many things. What are those? First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. That is what we have seen in case of South Africa. Both the community, black as well as white, they were having fear in their mind. Whether the agreement which was made between these two groups could be implemented or not. For that reason, they were dependent on some basic rules and regulations. That is why these basic rules and regulations now generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. Now no one can go against each other because both the group have agreed on the basic rules and regulations. So these rules and regulations generates a degree of trust and coordination between the different kind of people to live who want to live together. Secondly, it specifies how the government will be constituted, who will have power and to take which decision. Because when different kind of people are coming together and accepting some rules and regulation, at that time it is natural that some sort of confusion will arise. What confusion? That how the government will be formed, who will have the power. If the majority group of people will form the government and rule according to their own way, then what about the trust and coordination? This was the fear everywhere among the people. But when constitution is there, when some sort of rules or regulations are there, which are there to guide the people as well as the government, how the government will be formed and who will have the power and who will have the power to take what decision. And when all sort of things are there written down in a constitution, there is no problem at all. That is why it will help to generate a degree of trust and coordination. Thirdly, it lays down the limits on the powers of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizen are, how the government will be formed and what power will be there in the hand of the government. It is already written down in the constitution. Because whatever the political party, whichever the political party may be, who will be in the power, they will not run the government according to their own choice. Rather, they have to rule the country according to the rules and regulations established there in the constitution. Fourthly, It expresses the aspiration of the people about creating a good society. People, wherever in a democratic setup, they have struggled a lot and got and achieved democratic government. Every countries of the world, wherever there is democratic system, people are having some expectation. The aspiration, needs, demands of the people are only fulfilled in a democratic system, because democratic system provide rights, liberty, equality, justice, social and economic both to the people of the country. That is why people are having more expectation, more aspiration, and all those aspiration, expectation, needs or demands are fulfilled in a democratic system only. And this is expressed through the constitution. So, this is why, these are the fourth reason why we need a constitution for a country. So, all countries that have constitution are not necessarily democratic. Sometimes we are thinking that in a democratic country only constitutions are there. No, it is not required to be a country to be democratic. But all countries that are democratic will have constitution, because democratic country based on the principle of rules and regulations. So that is why every countries which are democratic, they are having constitution. As you see, after the war of independence against Great Britain, the Americans get themselves a constitution, and it is one of the oldest constitution in the world. After the revolution, the French people approved a democratic constitution for them. And since then, it is a practice for every democratic country of the world to have a written constitution. We, the people of India, after getting freedom from the clutch of the Britishers, we have also adopted a constitution for us. That is why every democratic country of the world, after getting independence, getting freedom, they have adopted democracy, which is a written one. Students, we are discussing about why do we need a constitution. We have got the facts also by drawing up some example from the South African conditions. Now we are moving towards the making of the Indian Constitution. Now we will discuss how the Indian Constitution was prepared. Like South Africa, India's Constitution was also drawn up under very difficult circumstances. As compared to South Africa, the Constitution of India also prepared in a very difficult situation. And the making of the Constitution for a huge and diverse country like India was also not an easy affair. In South Africa, we have seen there the existence of different communities like black, white, colored and migrated India. But as compared to them, we have a differences in different aspects. We have differences in the field of religion, language, tradition, custom. That is why preparing a constitution for the country which is having a huge and diverse one, it is not an easy task. At that time, the people of India were emerging from the status of subject to that of citizen. You know, I have told you, freedom gives us the status of subject to that of citizen. The country at that time was burning because of the partition on the basis of religious differences. Though we have got independence in 1947, still there was a very pathetic conditions prevailing during that time because of the partition. Lakhs of people were killed because of the riots between the two communities during the time of partition. And this was a very traumatic experience for the people of both India and Pakistan. Lakhs number of people were killed, not only from Indian side, both the side, India as well as Pakistan. It was a very pathetic condition, and it is very painful today also. So under these circumstances, preparing a constitution for the country was not an easy task also. At least 10 lakh people were killed on both the sides of the border in partition-related violence. At the same time, this was not the only problem. There was another problem with us. What was the problem? The British had left it to the rulers of the princely state to decide whether they wanted to merge with India or with Pakistan or remain independent. There were more than 500 princely states in India during that period of time. And when the British divided the country in the name of India and Pakistan, they gave a choice to the princely states, the ruler of the princely states. What was the choice? The choice was that the rulers of the princely state, they will decide whether they wanted to join with Pakistan or with India, or they wanted to remain independent. This was the choice in front of the princely states, the ruler of the princely states. And it was not so easy. Many of the princely states, they merged with India. At the same time, many of the princely states, they merged with Pakistan also. The merger of these princely states was a difficult as well as a Herculean task for the people of this country, for the leader of this country also. And it was not certain which princely state will come with which part of the country, India or Pakistan. When the constitution was being written, the future of the country did not look as secure as it does today. It was not so certain. It was a very difficult situation during that time when the constitution was prepared. What will be the future of the country? It was not so secure. The makers of the constitution had anxieties about the present and the future of this country, because when the constitution was prepared, at that time, the physical existence, the mental state of the people was something different, because they have seen, the people had seen the bloodshed between the two countries, that is India and Pakistan. And no one was certain about the future of this country. That is why it was a very difficult task for the maker of this constitution. So, students, we have started today the part of this discussion about how Indian started making constitution for us. Today, we have discussed all about this. In the next class, we'll discuss how the constitution was prepared. So, today, one activities I am giving to you. See the activities. Approach a club or the cooperative society or union or political party in your locality. Get a copy of their rule book. Everywhere it is there. All the associations are having that. Read it. Now you see, are these rules in accordance with the principle of democracy? Do they give membership to any person without discrimination? All these are to be done in these activities. So, next class we'll discuss how the constitution was prepared by the people of this country. Thank you.